Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's Insight webinar. It's Friday. Hopefully you've had a great week, and I'm really excited about the opportunity to finish it off by talking all things Facebook, online marketing, and generally lead gen. Welcome, everybody. So let me give you the background of Tino. Tino is the co-founder of Binary Marketing. He, along with Chris Som, they are working specifically in the advice space, in order to help advisors and other advice professionals basically get better results online. He has a 12-year proven track record in fast-growing financial and technology services, which is how sort of we end up knowing a lot of the same people. In other words, he has a lot of experience in taking people from startup to high eight-figure revenues. One of the things that really struck me for businesses out there who want to grow, to do that, you need to be able to generate leads in a scalable way. He's the former head of business development and partnerships at high-growth financial tech companies like OFX, an AFSX 200 business. Society One, who I'm sure many of you heard about, it's Australia's leading P2P lending platform and real groundbreaking. And he's been involved in multiple customer acquisition projects within, cloud accounting, credit union, and wealth management. So he has experience in bounds, and for a whole bunch of reasons, he is now turning those considerable talents onto making sure that people can nail it in the online space. So without further ado, let me just click over here. Let's get Tino up and running. Tino, are you there, buddy?
I am.
Good morning, mate. How are you?
Very well, thanks, Stu. How are you?
I'm exceptional. I've managed to get over my post-Bali blues. I've got back into it, and I'm looking forward to a weekend where I'm looking after the kids again.
Nice.
Man, how are you?
I'm well. It's Friday after all, so ready for the weekend.
So give us a bit of insight. Where are you, and what's your morning been like so far?
I am in a meeting room, logged into this webinar, but I've got a 2-year-old daughter, so I tend to, and a dog. I live in Rozelle in Sydney, and I tend to get up at typically 5:30 in the morning, take the dog for a walk, and kiss my little 2-year-old daughter bye before I hop off to work, and then made my way into the office.
What's the biggest difference between growing a startup and managing to grow a human being, in your opinion?
Geez, they're both challenges, right? I've spent, I suppose, a good part of the last 12 years working at Oz4X and Society One, and my mandate was grow this company as quickly as you can and as big as you can get it to. So I suppose there's a lot of life lessons that you can implement in terms of what you've learned from there. But yeah, it's an interesting world that I've spent the last 12 years in startups as well.
Yeah, I'd love to sort of go a bit deeper on Oz4X, because that is a seriously fast-growing company, and I'd love to touch a little bit about what you learned from that and maybe how that applies here. But before we do me a favor. What's something quirky about you that not many people know?
Geez, I was trying to think of what I could say to that. My wife always says I've got this weird thing that I do with my lips that I don't know I'm doing it. So you might see that now that I've said it, then everyone's going to know about it. So
yeah, we're going to look out for it. First person that can grab it, put it in the Q&A box, and we'll see if we can work out what it is.
Okay. It's not something that not many people know. Now everyone knows. So
everybody knows now. It's online. It'll be watchable over and over again. So Tino Ho, weird lip guy. For those of you who've got no idea about your Binary, can you just explain a little bit about sort of what you do and who you help?
Sure. So me and Chris co-founded Binary Marketing predominantly to help advisors and accountants get more clients with less effort, and you doing that using digital marketing. So we've got a lot of experience in generating client acquisition at scale, and we've essentially combined and distilled all of the stuff that Chris and I have learned over the years collectively, and then turn a business into it. There's a couple of things that we can talk about, but yeah, there's some big mistakes that we've been seen made, and we kind of got a bit tired of it and said, well, we want to fix it, and kind of gave us the motivation to say, all right, well, there's a problem in this space. We know how to fix it. It makes sense to address that, and that's how we started Binary Marketing.
Love it. So give us the background. How did you come to be sat here talking to me about marketing financial advisors, meeting Chris? Give us the 2-minute version of the path to Binary.
Sure. So I probably worth just starting from. I started my career early on at ANZ in Schroders Funds Management when I just started getting into the workforce, and then my first taste of digital marketing, understanding that space, was when I started at Forex, and it was a startup at that point. And for those of you who don't know how that business started, it started off as a website, and that was it, just publishing foreign currency exchange rates, live rates, and it started to gain a lot of traction, so much so that they were getting about 60,000 hits a month. And the founders there, Matt Gilmore and Gary Lord, had a foreign exchange background, worked for Bankers Trust and Westpac, and they saw a massive opportunity in the international money transfers or retail FX space. People were looking for information that they couldn't get, and they were simply just publishing live FX rates online. And that quickly turned into a business for money transfers, and that's where I joined and really started to understand that there were some massive opportunities in the online digital acquisition space. And I kind of spent 10 years there growing out the business development and strategic partnership teams, led the launch of the Forex and Xero cloud accounting app in 2015. But where it really got interesting was I spent a lot of time with the chief marketing officer there and sat on the leadership team for a number of years. And there was a period there where during that time where I led that project, I spent a lot of time actually sitting in with what they now call there's customer experience directors and focus groups, seeing how people behave online, what they click, and trying to understand the experience so that whatever you build online, whether it's a website or an ad, what works and what doesn't. And we'd get people in, we'd actually pay people to come in and give them a website or our site to look at, and we'd be watching them from another room, and they're watching exactly where they navigate on the screen. And this really opened my eyes up to a lot of things. And that was my first sort of engagement and really understanding to a deep level how digital customer experience worked. So I spent a lot of time there and quickly moved on to Society One, did a similar thing there, working with tier 2 financial institutions who were looking to turn on a capability in customer acquisition with all of the things that I just explained then. I did the same things in working with a lot of credit unions and tier 2 financial institutions. And then I met Chris not too long after that at Big Stone, which is another marketplace lender, and we, as I said, we saw a lot of problems in the space that accountants and advisors were making, and we already, I suppose, through that journey, Chris has got a wealth of, I suppose, experience in digital marketing on agency side, having worked for Group M as well, and we had a really complementary skill set. We shared the same understanding in terms of, you know, what you needed to do to succeed online and what mistakes were being made. And it just, we wanted to solve this problem. We were actually sick and tired of seeing people do the wrong things and waste so much money on doing the wrong things. And we just got tired of it, and we said, well, let's fix this problem. And that's when we kind of headed off and started Binary Marketing.
Love it. Excellent. So let's dive into it. What are the sort of, you talked a little bit about those mistakes. It seems like an appropriate time to kind of jump into that. What are the mistakes that you noticed that kind of made you want to jump in, start Binary, and start to help to solve some of the problems? What are the big ones?
I'd say, so there's a lot of tactical things that that could be executed better, but I think the big one that overarches everything is following the fundamentals. And Chris and I sort of look at this as 3 pillars. And the first pillar is understanding the audience and the customer problem. Who is it exactly that you are targeting? What is their profile, and what's the problem you solve for them? And I think you and I, Stu, we've had this chat numerous times. No one sort of wakes up out of bed and goes, I think I need a financial plan. And I think everyone would probably appreciate it just doesn't work that way, right? So there's normally a life event, or a trigger event, as we call it, that generates or creates a problem for that person, i.e. point A, and they want to get to point B. And it's understanding exactly what that point A is, what keeps them up at night, and what the problem is, and who that applies to. So that's kind of the first pillar that is fundamental. In fact, if you don't get that right, everything else doesn't matter. And what I mean by that is you could have great creative, you could have awesome ads, a sexy looking website, but if you haven't got the first pillar right, all of the other stuff doesn't matter, because you're spending money and driving traffic to the wrong audience for the wrong problem, for information they don't care about. So I think that's probably the fundamental key pillar. The second one is customer experience.
Okay.
Is getting that right. So what I mean by that is once you've engaged someone online, what's the sequence of steps or customer experience that they will go through to engage you, whether that's through your website, through your Facebook page, through LinkedIn, a landing page, and it's important to get that journey right. And that's the second major pillar, which I think a lot of people, that's probably not the most common problem, but there's room for improvement there. And then the third pillar is pressing play on the campaign and driving media to it. So, and this is a part that I think this is the shiny new toy that everyone gets caught up with, is, let's spend some money on getting ads on Facebook or Google AdWords. But it's the last thing you actually need to do. The first two pillars is what you need to get right first, and then you turn on the media, because then you're targeting the right person for the right problem you're trying to solve for them, and it follows through the nice right sequence of steps from a customer experience perspective, and then you can drive media and traffic. So I think if I was to say what's the one biggest mistake, it's understanding strategically why you do what you do online to accomplish those three pillars.
Okay, cool. Do you think now feels like a good time to sort of grab some of the questions that have been asked and say, let's assume that some of the people out there get the concept, but they really want to understand, what am I missing? What's the steps? What's the life event or the trigger that I should be talking about versus the one that you may be seeing people actually, advice firms start talking about? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So I think probably worth me starting by saying that one of the exercises that we go through is asking people, what's the problem you solve? What keeps your clients up at night? What's the burning problem that they have? And it's interesting when we ask that question, sometimes not most, but there's a lot of advisors or accountants that don't actually know the answer to that question with clarity, exactly what that is. There's a very good understanding in terms of what product or service you have, but what problem is it actually solving? What keeps that person up at night? And so one of the common mistakes in that space is a lack of understanding of what that is. And I think one of the things that we know that it's critical and fundamental to know is if you can actually explain and understand the customer's problem better than them, as in, can you write down on a piece of paper what their day looks like? That's the granularity of understanding. If you want to be successful in terms of getting ads right and showing the right people and getting people to click through, then this is the one thing you need to get right, is if you can understand their problems, so much so that you can write a page in their diary, rip out a page out of the diary, you can explain it better than them. That's going to make the world of difference. And I think that's the part that a lot of advice firms, I think if they get that right, you're definitely heading in the right direction. In fact, if anything, if you got everything wrong and got that right, you'd probably still be 2 steps ahead of a lot of people trying to get customers online.
I love it. I think we spoke about this before we came on board, and we said, I think it was Jay Abraham said that the easiest way to market is just work out the conversation the client's already having in their own head. Just join in the conversation, even if it's not the full package of what you do. Understand that once you started to have the conversation, once you started to move them into your business, you maximize the chance that you're actually going to end up with a client that suits your business model, that loves what you do and is going to say yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the part I think we share a lot of commonality on this view as well, Stu, is that bite-sized chunks, like
Yeah,
solve a little bit of that problem. And let me give you an example. So we all know that a financial plan is assembled by a number of different modules, right? There's estate planning, there's tax advice, there's a whole bunch of modules in a full plan.
yeah,
But the thing is, people aren't looking for all of those things. There's always one burning problem that they need to solve first, and that's a
absolutely.
bite-sized chunk of that overall plan. Um, and the engagement needs to be at that level. So
Yeah,
how do you actually rather than say that we're an advice firm, we give really good quality advice because everyone says that. What they want is information to solve that problem that they've got, and that might be only a very small part of your offering. It's not all of these other 20 things that you offer. It's very specific to that problem that customer has. So the point of that is you need to approach things in bite-sized chunks, and you can see online that there are some firms doing it well. You might come across ads or content online that provides really useful information up front, but it's very specific about a small problem.
small portion of it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's definitely one thing to keep in mind as well is approach it in bite-sized chunks.
This, off the top of your head, have you got any examples of messaging that kind of understanding from Facebook or from LinkedIn perspective, which is good versus, the alternate view, which isn't good when it comes to financial planning?
Yeah, look, I think let's talk about, let's say, Facebook ad, and this is the thing that really astounded me and was interesting as well, is that the majority of what drives success on a Facebook ad itself, on the creative, is actually the image, not
Yeah.
necessarily the copy. And I was on a couple of months ago, I was on a plane coming back from Melbourne, and I always sort of watch people what they do on their phones, and everyone you should try this. Is when I was observing this guy on his iPhone. He was flicking through his Facebook page, and if you notice what people do, they flick through their news feed, and it's flicking through pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
So what the actual words or the headline you have on there has an impact, but it doesn't grab people's attention. They're actually looking at the images. So if you've got an image that's attractive but needs to be relevant, if you've got an image and you get that right, that actually has the biggest impact on actually getting engagement as a first step in people wanting to even see your ad. And so that's definitely one thing to keep in mind in terms of Facebook. Fundamentals to keep in mind is make sure you get the image right, and then the headline is the second most important. It probably has around about a 20 to 30% impact, and then it's the copy underneath that. So if you don't get the image right, you won't even get or engage that person to even go as far as for them to read the copy underneath. So if you have great copy and a rubbish rubbish image that doesn't catch attention, then you kind of that didn't even get that far. So that's quite an important point as well.
I went to a session with a guy called Kevin Hutto from the US, and he was talking about he's got something called the introvert selling system because he doesn't like people. That's what he said. But his image was a guy on a unicorn with a rainbow in the back. There was more color, and he talked about the fact that it wasn't just the image; they enhanced it. They put the colors. They tested 7 or 8 different versions of it, trying to see which one got the most clicks. And then they'd moved on to the heading and stuff like that. So, I mean, the guys who really nail this get the image thing. And I've read some other tips is a face will always get attention. It's just we're hardwired to look at people's faces. So anybody out there who is, if you're looking for something to kind of put on your Facebook, often your face with some sort of expression on it is often one of the best ways to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got data to prove that as well. We've done lots of testing, and in general, as a guide, pictures of people perform better and get more click-throughs than pictures of just like stock images and of just things rather than people. So,
whoops, just dropped my pen. Give us 2 seconds. Okay, I'm back again. Mark makes a really good point. He says, yeah, scratch the itch, solve the immediate concern, then work with them from there. Just wish my licensee agreed. Tino, have you bumped into many licensees sort of who are frightened of the social media thing, or is it not come down your way yet?
So do you mean from a compliance point of view or just in
Yeah.
general? Yeah. Well, very relevant to some of the work we're doing right now. So we went through the three pillars that I mentioned earlier on and spent a lot of time with rigor understanding the audience. And it's kind of, we really had to hammer that home in saying, what are we trying to solve? And then we created content around that. So we do things like video sales letters. So the information we provide up front to solve that problem is in the form of a video. And so we had to get sign off for that. So we created the content first and then sent it off to get it approved. And I suppose putting when the compliance guys look at it, it's a very conservative view versus what we were trying to achieve. So I think there were some challenges around that, but we worked it out and it's working. But I think there's always going to be a mid ground there in making sure that you're still compliant, but also getting the cut through. And something mentioned there is scratching their itch or addressing the customer problem. As long as you're addressing the customer problem, then the better you do that, the more successful it is. And I think it depends on, from a compliance perspective, how conservative what compliance protocols that you need to comply with. But if they came back and said you can't do this, and it actually compromised the message in solving that problem, we probably wouldn't have gone live. We would have gone back to the drawing board and say, how do we do this so that it does address the customer problem? And it's so important. I mean, yes, it could make compliance happy, but if it doesn't accomplish those three pillars or the first pillar, it's no point doing it. You're just going to waste a lot of money putting up ads. You might get a few likes and a bit of traffic, but it's not going to get cut through and engagement. So, but luckily, in the case scenario that we were dealing with, we worked something out, and it still was at a level that we were comfortable with to proceed.
I wanted to, if you don't mind, just because we often get questions about what's the example of a good message or something that works. And I have a subscription to something called Compass.io, I think it is, which is a tool where you can go in and just review all these Facebook ads. You can type in keywords. And I've been doing a bit of a, scrape. And I wanted to give you an example of some that came up. If you have any thoughts on any of these, just jump in. I've got about 70 of them. But these are kind of Facebook ads that have been run by people like LearnVest, do a lot of them, Personal Capital. But some of the ones that they're short, they're sharp, they're snappy. I haven't got the images in here. I probably should. But stuff like living to 100. All you need to know about hitting the ton, healthy, wealthy, and happy. For me, that's if you think about baby boomers, one of the concerns they have is health and freedom. That's the kind of thing that potentially could get a click. Another one which really jumped out at me is your advisor acting in your best interest? 5 questions to be sure. That's again something that's not trying to sell financial advice, not trying to sell the appointment, but it's selling potentially you've got somebody out there on Facebook who's concerned that the advice they're getting is not great. I'll make that bigger. So that potentially would get a click through there as well. The other one which really sort of appealed to me, I'll put another one. I really like this one, affordable financial advice for insert target market here. Because at the end of the day, I think affordable to me sounds something I'm able to pay for and is going to deliver value. Now that can be different things for different people, but if somebody's out there looking for financial advice, but their concern is price and it's not mentioned, then potentially they're not going to kick through. But if suddenly you've got a situation where it's like, it's not cheap, but it's affordable, potentially you've got the opportunity to take them further down the path. You know what I mean?
If I could just throw in there one helpful tip, and you might want to take note of this, it helps with a lot of the stuff, is there's a website called BuzzSumo. Some of you may have heard of it or not, but if you're wondering the headline or the copy that you want to use on your ads or for any of your creative, what I would recommend you do is go into BuzzSumo. You can actually type in there the wording, and it gives you a measure. There's a free version of it. There's a paid version, but the free version's ample enough to give you some value. So you type it in, and it actually shows you if that word or if there's any articles associated with that, whether it's trending or not. So if you type in a certain word or a sentence, and you see that that's associated with a high level of interest or traffic, there's a certain number of shares, then you're onto something, as in people are searching for it. And if you use that, then there's a significant chance that you're going to get eyeballs onto whoever you're sending that to, because it's trending elsewhere. opposite of that is if you type it in and there's not much tracking or trending in that space, then you might want to keep that in mind in saying that, well, it's not really a popular word or a headline. Maybe try something else worded differently to see that to make sure it is getting some traction. So that's a really good data point to see if what you're thinking is actually of interest to people. Because I think that the other thing is that I've learned is what you think people want isn't necessarily what they want, and the best way to validate that is let the data tell you. Don't assume. You've got to have a hypothesis on what you think people want, so a starting position. But validate that using a data point, and that's a great data point. That's free if you go to buzzsumo.com.
BuzzSumo, that's perfect.
Yeah,
I bet holistic advice isn't in there.
Let's try it.
The other thing I just want to add to that, what people tell you they want is also often not what they actually want as well, because people lie to themselves just as much as they do to everyone else. Hey, let's just jump in and talk about the elephant in the room. One of the things I hear all too often from advisors is I've tried Facebook, it didn't work. I've invested a bunch of money, I did this, I didn't, I just can't seem to get traction. Let's talk about, you've been doing a bit of work in this space. Tell me about the kind of results that you get when it's done correctly.
Yeah. So I'll give you a bit of background. I think with Facebook, I think asking the why question and how we set that up and how we approach it is we follow those three pillars that I explained. I think getting the expectation right in terms of what to expect is one thing, as in it's not a 2 or 3 month exercise. Maybe it's best explained in an example. I'll give you this really weird example where I'm sure everyone sort of knows Kim Kardashian. She's an extreme example where she's got something like over 100 million followers. Now, she for every post she puts up, she generates $300,000 in revenue per week, and that cost her nothing to put that post up. So if she mentions a product or anything she mentions product-wise, it'll generate on average about $300,000 for that week. Now, one of the things that I sort of asked myself is, how does she do that, and how do you get to that point? Is there something there that we can sort of leverage, or what's the way that we can learn from that? And I took a step back, and it ties into these three pillars. But more importantly, there's kind of there's paid media, and then there's your own customer list. What she's done is she's spent a lot of money on paid media, and all your customers, all the people that are potential candidates for your service are on Facebook, they're on LinkedIn, they're on Google, they're out there. The big question is, how do you get them, how do you engage with them and get them to talk to you about how you can help them with their problem? And the way you do that is exactly what she's done. She's spent a lot of money on paid. You've got to invest, pay for media so you can engage people, and that might be generating followers. So she's got something like 100 million followers, and that's an extreme example. That's great, but that's only half the step. So you've paid money on ads to generate or engage your own following, but that's where the value is. Now she's got so many followers, she can now engage with them for free. If she can, obviously, she can for free, because anything she posts up and anyone who likes a page will see exactly what message that is. So it's like, it's a two-step, or there's two spheres. One is everyone's out on third-party platforms, but your goal should be, if it's a long-term strategy, should be you need to invest some money to get those people, engage those people or potential candidates into your own platform, where you don't need to pay, over the long term, don't need to pay a thing. Because for you to put a post up on Facebook or LinkedIn, it costs you nothing, right? Because you own that page. But the first step is getting them on there, because a lot of people spend a lot of money in saying, I've spent 10 grand in ads and I've got 500-600 followers, but I can't monetize it. Like, they're not engaged. It's because you're kind of only halfway there. Getting the followers on your page is critical, but that's only half the story. So. And the reason I use that example is because she's a perfect example of a really good execution in terms of getting people that are in a market onto her own platform, and then she literally pays nothing for it now, and she's getting a return on her investment because every post generates a $300K a week.
So in other words, get the eyeballs and then get the email address, or at least get the tie, give the permission to continue to market to you on an ongoing basis.
That's right. Yeah, you want to get some form of engagement, way that you can continue the conversation, and in bite-sized chunks. And that's that. You kind of break that down into bite-sized chunks, right? People, you might have some information and drive them to your page, and they might like it. That's a good result, but it's not the end game, right? It's only one step of two.
Okay, so can you give us some examples of what you've seen works really, really well for advice business specifically?
Yeah, so look, I think we're actually running a campaign at the moment for an advice firm, and we're using Facebook, we're using AdWords. They're very different platforms. We're also using LinkedIn, and there's some really powerful results we're getting from that as well. But there's different intent on Google as opposed to Facebook. Facebook's a bit more passive, but it's quite a cost-effective place to engage. But if you think about what's the first thing you'd sort of do when you want to make a major decision, let's talk finance-wise, if you've got a tax problem or if you're looking at estate planning or retirement, anything to do with your finances, there's a very good chance you'll very ahead in the science. Yeah. You could. So I think the first thing you normally do is go to Google. You Google something. So people are looking for information. So what your goal should be on AdWords, if that's a platform, is when that person searches that term, you want to be there, either organically and or at the paid level. And so the intent is high, as in that person is ready to embark on a journey which will lead to engaging your services. And I think our thesis is that there's probably square brackets 30% of the market where people are ready to buy now. They've already made the decision around, I need to see a planner. And yes, that is a segment of the market, but it's only, we think, square brackets, 30% of the market. So Google financial planner in Sydney, financial planner in Gordon, wherever that place is, these are people hot, ready to buy. Now, the challenge is the cost of those words on Google is very expensive. But the other 70% is where the big opportunity is. The cost is much lower. But these people are less advanced in the decision-making process, as in they're trying to solve that problem. They haven't got to a stage where they say, right, I actually know I need to see a financial planner. So if you can engage and provide valuable information up front that solves that problem that they're seeking online, then you're engaging with them. And that's a perfect opportunity to start to build a pipeline or some form of engagement with people who are perfect candidates for your offering. So the message there is Google's got higher intent. It's a bit more measured. But it's a little bit more expensive. But the conversion, just because it's more expensive, it doesn't mean it's not economical, because the conversion rates are pretty high on Google as well. So I think, it just depends on which the decisions need to be made around which platform you want to use. We generally say, as a rule of thumb, if you only kind of want to start with one, we'll generally start with Google because the intent is high. You'll get results faster. But then Facebook is a bit more of a slow burn. But what will happen is if you get the 3 pillars right, you will get cut through on some. You get some leads coming through, and we're generating some automated bookings online. Where I'll give an example of a funnel. We have a Facebook ad up. They click on that, and we only have that content designed around the problem that they're trying to solve. Goes to a landing page. We provide them a video. It's actually about a 15-minute video, and some people said that's really, really long. But the reason it needs to be that long, depending on the funnel, but the one that we built was pretty long, is because you need to cover enough bases to convince that person that it's worth them booking a time and spending half an hour out of their day to talk to you about what you do. And so the things that happen is, if think about what's happened there, they've clicked on your ad, they've gone to a landing page, and you're offering really good information up front. So that compels them to say, right, it's actually worth me giving my email address because I want to see the information they have. And if it's targeting the right problem and it's a burning problem for them, then it's a no-brainer that they will do it. They then watch your video, and the purpose of the video is that once they've finished watching that, they've seen your face, they've heard your voice, they've bought into your concepts, because you need at least about 10 minutes to demonstrate expertise, and you cover all bases, so there's enough convincing there. And then there's a call to action in terms of booking a time or having that conversation. Now, we're using this exact funnel with an advisor in Sydney, and we're getting bookings. Yesterday we had 2 that come through, and one of the clients, one of the guys that booked it was a chiropractor, so high income, high asset base. He's looking to set up an SMSF. So we're getting the right traffic, getting the right flow, but it's all because we're executing on those three pillars right. But the longer term output or outcome we're aiming for is that we want to build an audience, and that doesn't happen overnight, right? So I think immediately, yes, you'll get some conversion and click-throughs and engagement to start acquiring new customers. But the bigger picture thing here is what about if we're getting 2% click-through rates? What about or 30%, 20% opt-in rates? What about the 70 or 80%? How do we what's happening with those? And we're still engaging with them to get them off the paid platform, get them off Facebook. You're paying for the ad. Let's just get them into your platform, and then you can engage with them for free. So that's some of the stuff that we're doing that's working quite well.
Yeah, I would rather have one person on my mailing list than 100 likes every single time, because once I've got them on my mailing list, I can start to have that conversation, to build a community, and ultimately to work out whether they're into our stuff, whether they're connecting. I can get reports through Active Campaign that I just can't get through Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, is that kind of what the nature of the funnel you're building, which is, the ad is really go to the heart of the problem or the major benefit, get the click through the landing page, which is expanding on it a little bit more of the what, little bit of the how. No,
absolutely. I mean, that's one funnel. That's not the only way to do it. That's one way we know that that's working. And so there's various other funnels that we look at. I mean, the very interesting channel that we're using at the moment is LinkedIn. And it's guaranteed to work for B2B. We use it ourselves, and it's we've actually had to sort of slow it down because we can't handle the volume that's coming through. So LinkedIn is a massive untapped platform, and you can do it, interestingly, without spending a cent on media if you do it right. As in, you don't pay for ads. And we've had a couple of advice firms contact us from interstate, and they've said, well, can they use LinkedIn and to get more clients? And the short answer to that is it depends on who your audience is. And so people want to deal with other people, and a LinkedIn profile is like your personal website. You want to make sure you get that right, because there's a very good chance that even if you don't use LinkedIn as a platform, people will probably look at your profile if they've heard of you or before they come and meet with you. By going to their website, they may actually search your LinkedIn profile. So
totally.
I mean, the one thing that's worth doing is right now Google your own name, and there's a very good chance that you will appear in the first 4 or 5 searches on the LinkedIn site. So your actual LinkedIn profile will come up for most people when you Google your own name. Now, you want to make sure your profile is optimized and it looks good and it represents value for if someone saw your profile, would they want to actually talk to you? Does it actually present or position your offering so that you can help them? And the biggest mistake, well, not mistake, I think it depends on what you want to accomplish out of LinkedIn, is a lot of people use it as an online resume. And if that's what you want to use it for, that's absolutely fine. But if you want to use it to get more customers, it's totally the wrong thing to do, because if you look at the headline statement, there's it underneath your profile picture. The first thing people look at is your profile picture, and then underneath it'll be your title or headline statement. A lot of people put CEO of this firm or director of this firm, and the reality is that doesn't tell them enough to know whether it's worth connecting with you or whether you can help them. And what we do is we do a lot of work around optimizing that so that it should say something along the lines of, I help retirees generate wealth. So if someone was to look at it and you've got 30 seconds to capture their intention for them to decide, okay, is this person someone that can help me solve my problem? If you've got your title there, that's not going to tell them enough to know what they want. So LinkedIn's quite an interesting playground or platform, and we're seeing some pretty astronomical results in a short period.
Can you give us some metrics? Are you able to do that?
Yeah, sure.
I think you mentioned before we came on board a whole bunch of, you mentioned you got a certain amount of leads in 48 hours?
So yeah, we, this week, in fact, with the same advice firm that we're working with, they've got, launched, without saying names, they've launched a property and tax campaign. The property side of that firm, we're looking for more leads and to meet more accountants as distribution partners or referral partners. And we launched within 48 hours, we generated 3 incoming leads, as in these were accountants willing and able and wanting to talk around how they could actually work with each other. And that's really fast. Like, I think to switch that campaign on and in 48 hours get 3 leads, I mean, I'm not saying it's not achievable using other platforms, but we did that without paying a cent for any LinkedIn media. That's just using the advisor's profile. So it's not even the website. All we did was we upgraded him to Sales Navigator, so that's the premium subscription, optimized his profile, press play on the ads, and we launched that campaign, and in that period of time we got 3 leads, which kind of astounded us as well, and that's only scratching the surface. That's only 3 days in, so we're running a 3-month campaign on that. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got about 10 minutes left, so what I wanted to do is kind of fire some questions at you that I've got, and then there's some great questions sort of over here around from Jeffrey. Greg's got a good one. I want to sort of go a bit deeper on Jeff's as well as Mark's. So is that cool if we kind of go through some quick fire questions, and anybody can drop some questions in addition to the ones we got there? I'll ask Jeff's just quickly because it's right there and then. Because we talked about LinkedIn, we talked about Facebook. What about Instagram?
Well, I'll be honest, we haven't spent a lot of time on the Instagram. It's not in the financial services space. It's not really, we don't have a lot of experience in that space, but equally it's because we don't believe that it's a viable channel. It's very image driven. It's more a retail position platform. I'm happy to be convinced otherwise, but yeah, we're still yet to see it work successfully for the fin services sector. So it's not a space that we play in, or that we're convinced that works for fin services anyway.
Jeff, we've had a bit of a play with it. We're going to keep playing with it, but so far we've not cracked even some traction to make it worthwhile. It doesn't mean it's not going to go anywhere. The other one I'm really interested in, I won't go on it now, is Quora. I'm a regular reader of Quora threads, which is a question and answer section. And yeah, if you are an expert or a knowledgeable person who can answer a question, spin a yarn, or provide value through the information that you provide, I reckon Quora is an interesting long-form way of getting followers and generating interest in what you've got to say. But again, really early days, and I think the amount of time to kind of sit in Quora and write answers is probably pretty significant. Okay. Tino, let me throw some questions at you. One question that came from Michael Chu on our program. Actually, no, let's start with this. What have you seen? Give us 2 or 3 things that genuinely do work when it comes to getting clicks.
Sorry, could you just repeat that again? I think it cut out a bit.
Can you give me sort of 1 or 2 or 3 things that consistently work if your aim is to get clicks or click-throughs?
Yeah, look, I think almost always success online ties back to those three pillars, and I think make sure you get the audience and the problem that you're trying to solve right, and we have found that if you get that right, you should generate good click-throughs and engagement, and depending on the platform as well. But I think it's getting alignment around that correct, to get the click-throughs on the ad. So the click-throughs is very early stage of the whole customer experience, right? So you need to be able to, if you can articulate in the shortest wording as possible, that it
Yeah.
get the keywords right. And you can use, as I said, use BuzzSumo as one way to as a data point to test that. If you can tinker around with that and get that right, it makes a world of difference. And I think I mentioned to you earlier on, Stu, is that it's the online space is particularly Google AdWords as well, but it applies with many platforms. It's a game of 90-10, not 80-20. So if you crack the code, you get the right. I mean, it's the difference that one word can make in a headline. If you get that right, is phenomenal in terms of the click-through rates. Because if you can improve your click-through rates by 0.5%, that could mean 20x difference in terms of the outcome. So it's a game of many small levers, but also a game of 90-10. If you get the levers right, these small levers make a massive difference, and it can help with a lot of ads as well. So getting the point of it is getting the headline and the image right if it's Facebook as well.
Cool. And I mean, one of the things you can do is, if Gen X, the thing right now may be buying a house, being able to get approval, because I know that credit availability is on the way down. For sort of more mature baby boomers, it would be, hey, would you like the 30-second guide as to what you need to know about the super changes? Or alternatively, it might be retire sooner with less hassle. For new parents, it might be get a plan to make sure you can provide for your family. These are all sort of elongated ways, but one of the best ways to do is sit down and don't just write out one or two, write out 20 potential messages that could be there. Even stupid ones. Get stupid ones out there as well, because often when you get stupid ones, the smart ones come. Failing that, jump onto something like addicted.io or Compass and just see what other messages are out there and get inspiration, but do multiple things. What's the best way to set up advertising so it goes to the right demographic? This is one from Glenn Doherty, I think.
So it goes to the right demographic. Sorry, fire
away.
So the question was, what's the best way to set up advertising to target the right demographic?
The right demographic, yeah.
Yeah. It depends on which platform. So if you're going to, let's talk Facebook. Facebook has got a very powerful way to be able to zone in on audiences and demographic, and also based on region. So there's a couple of ways you can approach it. One is you can start with, and we always take an approach where you start with a hypothesis and you let the data tell you. There's kind of two ways you can do it. And neither one is right or wrong. It's just a different way to approach it. And one approach is, if you start with a large audience within your demographic, i.e. when you go into Facebook, there's an audience selection there. So you're building out who you're trying to target. And we use a lot of interest groups, right? So you can create an audience by selecting interest groups, and those interest groups are representative of your target audience. So if someone's liked property investing, that may represent a person or a candidate that might be good for your services. So you start big, as in you might select 20 or 30 audiences. You then run ads and you split test that, and then you monitor and review which of those audiences work, because the end game is, after a week or two of testing, you might find that of the 30 audiences that you picked in that demographic, only 5 are winners. All the other 25 are losers, as in they're not getting the click-throughs, i.e., and it's also costing you more, and they're not performing right. Get rid of them, and quickly as well. But you need to have the right KPIs and know that, okay, what does success look like in terms of whether that audience is working or not. So that's one approach. You start big and you cut it down, and you can see what we're doing there is we're not going, right, we know this audience works. When I said earlier on, there's things that you think work, but let the market or let the data tell you, and that's one approach where you let the data tell you. Start big, monitor the click-through rates, and then you cut back, and then you're only left at the end of a couple of weeks with winning audiences, that are driving the right click-throughs to the right audience.
So cut and cull and refine.
Yeah, exactly. So the other approach is you kind of the opposite to that, where you start very targeted and very small, and you just literally test that. That takes longer, but you don't have to spend as much. So if you think of the first approach, you probably need a larger budget to start with. So there's more budget or media spend up front, but you learn quickly. And this is the other big takeaway, is that no one's got a silver bullet, but you need to kind of cut and refine. But you want to do that at the lowest cost possible. you want to learn fast, because if you don't learn fast, it's going to cost you more. So you're doing things that may not get you the results, so you're paying more, right? So yes, there's more cost up front to start with a large audience, but you learn fast, because in the long term, you'll be creating ads, you'll be spending money on media, on audiences that that work, right?
Yeah. So, as opposed to getting disheartened and going, you know what, I did it for 5 minutes, it didn't work.
That's right. Yeah, no, I think that's a big mistake as well. Yeah.
What do you think about lookalike audiences?
It's absolutely a great way to do it. And you use a lookalike. Yeah, you use lookalike audiences on audiences that work. So if you started with 30 and there's 5 winners, then you know what types of lookalike audiences to leverage against. It's the ones that are winners. So the biggest challenge is finding out who your audience is and who it works for. So that's where you want to get to that point as quickly as possible. And once you've got that, then you can expand that audience by using lookalike audiences as well.
So lookalike, one of the things you can do is grab our client list. I think you need a minimum of 200. So you need 200 people whose email addresses are connected to their Facebook account. Yep. Particularly if you've got a large client base, or you've got a large number of email addresses that are active, you can put them into Facebook, and it will find out whether they're on Facebook. So you can potentially market to people who are disengaged clients, but it's also going to go out and say, right, I'm going to go find other people who are kind of similar to this, have similar interests, similar likes, similar demographics, and just replicate them. And one of the benefits there is it's really, really inexpensive, because most other marketers on Facebook are not going to be looking actively for people that match that sort of profile. It's really, really great way of doing it if you've got enough active email addresses. Let me just chuck a few more at you if you don't mind, Tino. Want to know just quickly, what type of advertising is best? In other words, if you had a choice between technical advertising, general articles, or downloadables, how would you rate those three?
I think the answer to that would be depending on the audience and the platform. So, for example, if you are using LinkedIn, because it's more a business environment, normally technical content would make sense. Whereas if you look at Facebook, people would jump onto Facebook more in a social and relaxed state when in their spare time. It's the same message, but the delivery is slightly different, right? So you kind of want the answer to that is it depends on which platform and audience as well.
LinkedIn tends to be more professional, more B2B.
Yeah.
Facebook, you're probably going to have to leave with something that's a bit more lifestyle, or at least not as heavy to begin with, right?
That's right. Yeah. In general, as a general rule of thumb, that's what we've seen that works. So you could have the same, as I said, same underlying message. It's just that it's delivered differently.
Perfectly. I'm going to ask a couple off the feed if that's cool. Mark's got a couple of good ones. Talking about conversion. I'm not sure whether this is one for Tino, but I'll give it to you anyway. They've got leads coming into a landing page, come to the homepage. What are suggestions for converting them? Presumably you mean converting them to conversations, Mark. Tino, what would you recommend?
So if I'm understanding that correctly, there's people opting into your landing page already, as in they're providing an email address already, and you want to know how to engage. Is that the
I'm guessing what it may be, or it may be that, or it may just be. I wonder if Mark's still on the line. Or it might just be they're hitting his homepage. They're just maybe not signing up. Mark, do you want to clarify for us?
I can answer that because it's actually a very common question that we do get. Is remember when I said when you've got when someone is searching for something online, there's specific information that they're seeking that solves their problem. Now, if you send that person to your homepage, there's a very high chance that the information on your homepage isn't what they're looking for, and as a result, they'll just click elsewhere. What you wanted, and there's this concept of, you guys have heard it all before, I'm sure, is landing pages. Landing pages are simply very specific web pages with one bit of information, right? It's basically providing information in exchange for an email. So if you want to get, if you are driving traffic to your online assets, make sure that if you want to get the results in terms of, if your objective is to collect their contact details as a first step, which I think makes a lot of sense in terms of why you build a landing page in the first place, make sure you're giving them the right information and not sending them sending them to your homepage.
Yeah.
If someone's on Google searching for financial planner in Sydney, then that probably sending them to your homepage could be the right step to take. But if they're searching that and you're searching for something around tax advice and you send them to your homepage, or estate planning and go to your homepage, you're going to see all these other things that is really noise and distraction and not what they're looking for, and that's where you get poor results.
Yeah, that's fair. If they're not giving if they're not giving the email address, Mark, then it means that at some point the difference between what you've offered on Facebook or on the lead source versus the difference between what you've offered on landing pages, you've gone off track. You've either not given them some burning reason to take your thing, or you've just not connected well enough with the problem, or alternatively, there's something about your site that means they're just coming through and they're not quite sure about who you are or what you're doing or what you're going to do with their email address, which is another thing. Fair enough, Tino?
Makes sense, yeah, totally agree.
Okay, that's a bit of the conversion thing. Let's ask this one, and then I'm gonna, final question. Mid-sized planning firm. Is that your target market? Tino, what sort of advice business do you think will get the most from working in online marketing in the type that you do?
So our target audiences are very similar to yours, Stu, in so far as saying that it's an advice firm that's been operating. They've got a good product. You've got a customer base, and you're kind of ready to scale. You really want to take the business to the next level because you've got your referral channels, and that's the low-hanging fruit, and that absolutely works. But you really want to accelerate the growth of your client base, and the way to do that at scale is using digital channels. And that's a lot of the work that Chris and I did is taking a business that is offering a credible product, and you've got customers. You're just now ready to step that up to the next level, and that's typically the types of firms that we work with. We work with firms above and below that, but I think that's typically the spot where we can add the most value.
Cool. Do me a favor. I'm going to just ask a couple of questions down, but I'd love everybody who's still with us. Do me a favor. Type in the Q&A box of everything we've spoken about today. What's been most useful for you? What is the number one thing you've learned from this conversation about generating leads, working on Facebook, LinkedIn, converting, all of that sort of stuff? I just want to know what's really popping for people. And while I'm doing that, I might ask, Tino, what's one thing you suggest that advisors can do immediately off the back of this webinar to improve their online lead generation? Ideally, something that's really simple, a tweak they can make and just get results straight away.
I think the most actionable thing you can do to get results fast, I reckon start with your LinkedIn profile. Check that out. I mean, Google your own name. That's what I would recommend. Google your own name now and see what comes up, because there's a good chance that someone else is Googling your name, and there's a great opportunity for someone, if you've got the right headline statement and you optimize your profile, people will click on that, and there's a good chance you'll get, I get people contacting me because on my headline statement there's the right wording there, and that's what they're looking for, and you might be surprised you get something pretty quick there, and that's probably a good thing, good place to start, where you can just literally after this webinar get on there and actually have a think about what's the problem you solve for which audience, and design a short headline statement around how it articulates what you do and how you can help your audience, and design it, make it about them, not about you. And as I said, the biggest mistake people make is they say they give you a job title and it's all about you, and it doesn't really matter because it's all about the client. So position your profile like that.
I love it. I've got a couple of things coming through. Please keep them coming. Elizabeth says it's been really useful to understand the 3 pillars, which were to reiterate them: understand the client first, talk about the experience, the steps they're going to go through, and then hit play and spend the money. She says that's been really useful. And the idea of having a landing page to address specific problems rather than just chucking them through to a website where you're talking about 20 different things at once. Greg says that tips for effective Facebook adverts have been really useful. The importance of images and some of the example headlines were really useful. Glenn said getting the message right. The wording has got to be right. Solve the ideal client's problems one by one was really useful as well. Awesome. Late question from Mark, and it's a good one. Are we selling us as personal planners, or are we selling the advice firm?
it depends on what which platform you use. I think the only point, but I would, as a rule of thumb, it's better on LinkedIn to sell your personal profile. What doesn't work, I haven't seen that work yet, is LinkedIn's company page, because people want to deal with other people. But if you've got a website and you've got a business, obviously there's ways we can. You want to be promoting and building your brand, and you do that through various channels and using the 3 pillars, etc. But if someone came, a lot of people come to us and say, how do we use LinkedIn to generate opportunities in leads? Under that scenario, it would be your personal brand that you would build, because LinkedIn is effectively a personal website. But anything outside of that, if you want to look at other platforms like Facebook, Google AdWords, and you want to build and accomplish some brand equity and be known as the advice firm for your audience, then obviously you need to build your brand, and you build all your digital assets to support that and accomplish that.
I also want to add in there, I think it depends on what stage your business is at. I think if you're, early stage and you're building your brand, I think you've got to lead a lot with you. Because ultimately, while you're building the brand's not worth as much as your personal brand. And then as the business grows bigger and bigger, you're going to switch across to, the brand, because it represents something. In the same way that, before there was Virgin, there was Branson. And then as soon as Virgin got big, Branson maintained his brand, but took a bit of a backseat. Same with, you could argue that Apple's never recovered from losing jobs, but that's another story.
Yeah, hey, I think if I could just quickly mention something, because I think it ties in really well with that, is that if you're at that stage and you've got more credibility with your personal brand, is that's where LinkedIn comes in really useful, is on your website in the About Us section, you will have a photo of you and a link to your LinkedIn profile. And that's the way to accomplish that. It sort of works together if you're at that stage.
Love it. And Chris, Despina, Jake, Jeffrey, Mark, Marcel, Ruben, Scott, I'd love to know what has been most useful for you, what insight you've got today about this. But while I'm getting that, I just want to jump in. Tino, if people want to know more about you, about Binary, about what you're working on, where can they go?
Send me an email. So my email address is Tino at binarymarketing.com.au. I'd be happy to answer any questions or offer any advice there. So yeah, feel free to reach out if there's any questions.
And what are you working on right now? What's the current thing that you're testing or playing with?
Yeah, so we've got a number of campaigns that we're running with multiple different funnels, and I think I touched on that earlier on. So that's something that's keeping us busy at the moment. But the new thing that's really gaining traction for us with, as I said, pretty astonishing results, as in leads quickly in a short period of time, is LinkedIn, and we're getting more and more interest around from advisors saying, how do you actually use LinkedIn? Because not many people think that you can use it as a lead generation source, and it's proving to be a very viable way to do it. So in the advice space, it can work. It just depends on who your audience is, so yeah, that's kind of what's really interesting for us at the moment, is a bit of an untapped opportunity using the LinkedIn platform, which I think if you go to any digital agency that does everything, a lot of them don't even really use it or understand how to use it. So it's kind of the new thing that's happening. And you could have, if you move on it now, it's a bit of a first, we think it's a first mover advantage in a new platform that there's a massive opportunity around. So that's the space that's keeping us busy at the moment as well.
Mate, this has been awesome. I think there's two things which have really stuck for me. First thing is, it's just really underlined the importance of that first bit, which is understanding the client, even from which platform you select, down to the wording, what kind of content you put out. If you start by being really, really clear about who you want to write for, what kind of conversation you want to start, and with who, it will guide so much stuff out there, including everything from the speed of the decision they're going to make, whether they're already looking for a solution, whether they don't know they need the problem, and it'll save you a lot of guessing along the way, as well as BuzzSumo, man. I haven't found it, and I haven't checked it out. I'm really, really keen to look at it, so thank you for that. More feedback. Mark says images on Facebook ads has been really useful for him. The whole idea of fast and expenses versus cheap and slow burn. And Jeffrey Wright says he's much clearer on the difference between the use of Google AdWords, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and that understanding that burning issue is probably the most vital thing. This has been awesome, Tino. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
It's a huge topic, and I feel like the hour and a quarter's gone past with record speed. We're going to be doing a bit of work together over the next few months, and at the moment it's pretty embryonic. We're still planning things, but one of the things we sort of talked about doing is sort of doing the work and then maybe filming a sort of an ongoing video blog, sort of showing people what we're working on, how we're building, the mistakes we're making, how we're tweaking. So if you are keen to kind of see, I suppose we'd call it, the building of a campaign, there's an opportunity to kind of see not only the stuff that works, but also the stuff that we've had to tweak and fix, and possibly even just replicate some of it for yourself. Is that about right, Tino?
Yeah, I think that I'm really excited about that. Actually, I think we can just bring everyone, lift up the hood, and just bring everyone along the journey with us and learn with us on it. So yeah, really look forward to that, and that's something that's a pretty exciting initiative that we've got planned. So yeah, that's
me too. And if you're already sort of on a mailing list, you'll get information about this in an upcoming monthly snapshot. If you're not, we'll post the videos on Facebook. So sorry, not Facebook, YouTube. We'll obviously put links on Facebook as well, but yeah, just keep an eye out. If you are interested in kind of not just hearing here's the overview, but actually going, right, watching us actually build step 1, step 2, step 3, and kind of document it along the way. Keep your eyes open for that. I'm super excited about that sort of stuff, showing the work along the way. Mate, we've taken up already more of your time than we agreed. Is there anything else you want to add?
Not really. I think it's been good. Thanks for having me on here. I hope everyone got something out of it. So yeah, it's been good, and one of many, I hope. And yeah, look forward to the next one.
Cool, excellent. Ladies, gents, I hope you've had a great week. I hope you enjoyed that. For anybody who's on the program, look out next week for the webinars that are coming, including the drop-ins. But otherwise, thanks very much for your time. Have a great weekend. And unless there's any further questions, this kind of feels like it's done and dusted. So yeah, have a great weekend. Thanks again, Tino. Enjoy your weekend, and everybody, I'll speak to you soon. Take care. Bye.